it looks like we might be able to go ahead and start. For the folks who just joined, I just opened with a little land acknowledgement a few minutes ago, and it looks like we're going to go ahead and begin. Folks are settling in, so I'm gonna go ahead and have like a dear friend who is also a SEEP grad who started the same year I did, like my cohort, a Kale Kang, kind of give an introduction.
Awesome. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, E. This is an honor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce our speaker for today's Gatty lecture, Cornell's very own artist, performer, and theater practitioner, Elissa Domingo Badiqué, or E. With a background in English education and performing in media arts, E's art and language practices tells us that their limitless creativity cannot be contained in boring academic texts. I was walking with a friend once and I was complaining to them how people outside the US wrongly perceive this country to be a place where people don't stare at you and let you be. And my friend told me, hermit like, they said, Akhil, in this world, there are two kinds of people, the ones who stare and the ones who get stared at. It would be insulting to our friendship, E, if I were to now specify which category you fall into. But I share this statement because I look at E's carefully curated genius into complicating the staring in beautiful ways. E performs Beyonce's Single Ladies with expert arm movements, hip thrusts, while teaching English in classrooms in Japan, while simultaneously also referencing choreography to cheering students, I might add. E creates MMD animation videos of manga characters dancing to Charlie Puth's Cheating on You. E draws from references across the US, Japan, Korea, Philippines, and gender fucks the extraordinary worlds of Jujutsu Kaisen, Mob Psycho 100, and the Demon Slayer. E combines theory and praxis and pushes normative understandings of knowledge. E's playful, self fashioning, and collaborative cosplay performances as embodied acts teaches us not just about their work, but also how they live in their work. With their envious wig collection, E slips in and out of the supernatural worlds of elves, fairies, demons, and the demonic, soulless worlds of Cornell and Shitika, and proves to us all that you can be an academic and not be boring. And most importantly, as E emphasizes in their work on TikTok and whiteness, that BIPOC Queer BIPOC cosplayers are absolutely intentional in creating and disseminating the fandom worlds into the real worlds. And given the algorithmic racial bias, he argues an uneven distribution of power and visibility comes with psychic and material consequences that become apparent in racial appropriations. So I welcome E to the mic and I reference their TikTok, where E in pastel shades and dreamy eyes say, God put me on this earth to be an excellent vibe, to have immaculate taste, and to be extremely sexy.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
All right, so before we start, we're doing something different for Q&A today. So you will receive these index cards, and if you have a question, you can write it on the index card and hand it to me afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. I do have like newly diagnosed auditory processing disorder, which I'm learning to accommodate now. So like written things help me a lot. So feel free to write comments, questions, and then pass it up, or pass it to, the co-chairs, they call it. And I'll like while you can also ask me, but I will also be sure to like read it so I know what you're asking me and I can address the question properly. But yeah, just a really quick thank you to Akil for the beautiful introduction. I didn't realize that you had gone, you had seen so many of like my videos and things. So I feel very seen. And honestly, can I just like stick that in my introduction for like my bio sketch for my dissertation? Because I mean, oh my goodness. Now we have it on transcript, like but that was beautiful. What a wonderful surprise. So thank you again, Akil, for the lovely intro. And I also want to thank extend a warm thank you to Seep and Seep family for just being so supportive. Oh, speaking of Seep family, here's a Seep grad coming in, who is now a lifer at Ithaca and is still teaching Filipino martial arts with my partner here, Howard Liu. So just a quick plug to Cornell Kali, if you are interested in, Filipino martial arts. They're robust and they are teaching, and someone is newly certified for Balintawak. Sorry to put you on the spot, but he's now an instructor, so feel free to reach out to Howard over there if you are interested in taking on, some martial arts for self-defense. No reason, you know. So again, I just want to thank, Seep and the Seep like family for just being so supportive of like me, my work, and it's wonderful to be part of the series and like alongside the scholars that I had invited when I was co-chair, and all ended up in my dissertation project. Um, as foundational. So I also want to send a thank you to Arnica Furman and Carrie Gwynn Lewis for working really closely with me on the chapters that I've drawn little bits of for for this presentation. I might have to cut it a little bit shorter because I want to respect time. So I might kind of breeze through a few things, but you can always reach out to me later if you have questions. Some of you know it's been a very, very challenging year, and I'm just glad that you all are here sharing the space with me while I'm here at Cornell. So, all right, let's get started. So this is the title of my first chapter. Do you copy the racialized masquerade of K-pop and Filipino variety show cover dance? And just as an aside, I use the words Filipino, Philippine, Filipinx, Filipina interchangeably. It depends on the context, but I typically use Filipinx to kind of as a gender neutral like marker or like a pronoun. I use it for myself. And Filipino sometimes could mean from the Philippines, like of the Philippines, or Filipino as in like kind of like cisgender male Filipino, whether they're, part of the diaspora or from the Philippines. So, okay. Oops, let me hide this. And hopefully this little thing on top won't be too disruptive. So it's just like four like parts. It was really hard to pare things down because I wanted to put in everything. Um, so I do approach things from kind of a dance studies perspective, even though I am not like a trained dancer. I haven't even really like joined a lot of hip hop workshops when I was growing up. This is just like I'm very casual, what some folks at PMA call like a dancey dancer. I do like the kind of popular dances that TikTok is known for. And you'll soon see the Filipino variety shows are known for. So Sansan Kwan over at Berkeley had really informed my work. Her book Kinesthetic City has this like these two wonderful little quotes. Oh, hey, Paige. Speaking of PME. um, so diasporic identity marks the body. So where you're from haunts where you're at. So, I think about this and my positionality kind of flows of culture and how that informs how we move. And I am kind of approaching racialization through metonyms in movement. Um, but okay, so this is where I'm from is California. Where I'm at right now is Ithaca. So this is my 6th year. I'm a PhD candidate. these are like my broad areas. I look at race, media, especially new media, Asia and like Asia America as well, performance, popular dance, and embodiment. So you're gonna see a lot of that. So another kind of shout out, thank you to to Seep is I had taken a class with Kiara Hormigi. Some of her students are here right now. I didn't tell her that I was going to shout her out here, but it'll be a little surprise. But she had this class on modernity, and there was this one chapter about modern girls in the 1920s that was called that had the term like racial masquerade and by Alice Weinbaum. And it was essentially about like white women, white American women kind of Asianizing or like their eyes using eyeliner and cosmetics to kind of embody what they called Nipponese-ness back in the day. And she was kind of extending Robert Ezra Park's work on racial masks and the racial uniform that he uses to refer to Asians or Asian Americans who cannot shed their racial uniform, as marked Asian. So I am doing something where I use the term like racialized masquerade, and I apply it across genders, race, ethnicities. It's become very useful and used in my dissertation project many, many times. So my intervention appears small, but it's mighty as it adds like the suffix of eyes to racial. This change is an action, a verb, which serves to highlight the act of producing and perceiving that gives the actor and audience agency. So it implicates the masquerader and the active work of the racialized metonyms used in cosmetic alteration and deliberate gesture. So you'll see, like, you know, I feel like all these asides might add extra time, so I'm gonna try to keep it keep it short. But um, if you have been on TikTok and you're on the algorithm that I am on, you're going to see that Asian fishing is kind of like a new colloquial term for people who are not of Asian descent, but try to embody it and kind of they may not be intending to pass, but it's kind of a happy accident if they do. Oh, hey, Sarah. I love seeing like these familiar faces popping up. So this is something that kind of spurred like my I guess like my academic origin story when I saw people who are big fans of Korean pop culture and Japanese pop culture just actually surprising me when I learned that they are not of Asian descent actually. So um, seeing it in dance has been a really interesting thing to witness. So let's see. My research is like limited to the scope of my own experience and geotemporal boundaries. Sorry, I keep getting. I like that people are jumping in, but I tend to get distracted. So I feature autoethnographic research, and as such, I choose to focus on Asians of Philippine descent, with particular attention to those assigned female at birth, like myself, AFAB, and how positionality racializes their short form dance performances. So even when you're like, at play, you're kind of producing and constructing a racialized identity. So racialized masquerade plays a large role, particularly in the mediated realm of screen dance, which is, TV, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere where there's a dance that's made for the screen, that's a screen dance. And short form dance, it could be argued. You could like I say short form dances are like kind of shorter dances between like what 2 seconds and 10 minutes. So it's kind of a broad scope. So this racialization isn't talked about enough when Filipinos and Filipinx are infamously referred to as a nation of, quote, the great imitators, historically known for their vocal covers, like Arnel Pineda, who is, I think he's still the new frontman of Journey. That's how he was scoped out on YouTube. He had such a good like mimic to the original singer's voice that, he was brought on. So in the dance realm, the Philippines has recently gained recognition for consistently winning international K-pop cover dance competitions. And I'm just going to show a really quick clip of Teenage for you carrots or 17 fans out there. They cover one of my favorite songs called Don't Wanna Cry. And this, so pay attention, this is actually a Filipino variety show stage. So on top of SAP has been around since I think it's really interesting how we have the hostess standing in the front while going the back and dancing through their lines. It's very important to the original choreography from the start. So that is kind of an idea. So kind of keep in mind like the intimacy of that stage. That is what a Filipino variety show dance stage looks like. So it is my belief that Filipino dance covers are not an extension of their vocal cover culture, but instead are the product of locally established dance cultures, which not only made a national pastime of replicating complex short form dance choreography, but made dance one of the few pathways towards like upward mobility, social, material. And, you know, J. Lorenzo Corelio, who I think also was a Gatty speaker here when he was a postdoc here at Cornell, he had done a like wonderful work on this. And, you know, Lucy Mays and Pablo Burns had also talked about splendid dancing is what made young Filipino migrants to the US figures that were both aspirational, desirable, and, you know, most importantly, threatening. White Californian men in the 1920s through the 30s were terrified of Filipino men's splendid dancing in the dance halls, where they dance partnered with white women. This is not a far cry from the mainstreaming of Filipino dance groups and their rise as aspirational dance figures who, like modern K-pop idols, utilize Asian kind of soft masculinity paired with short form dance to carve a pathway towards upward class and social mobility. So here, I'm going to move a little bit further. So the notable presence of Filipino splendid dancers across space and time is one that marked academic inquiry. And I suggest that they play a significant role in discourse, which builds the image of what teenage me referred to as the quote unquote Asian dancing boy, a mythic figure in the North American imaginary, or the, you know, anyway, the Filipinx who grew up watching the variety shows that their parents put on the TV. Um, and I used to label my VHS tapes. I'm gonna date myself. Like I used to tape and record these variety shows, and I would label them with Asian Dancing Boys, and I would save them to kind of learn the choreography later by playing it back. Um, so my back hurts just talking about this because I feel like a lot of you are younger. So I think through kind of Priya Srinivasan's Oriental Dancing Girl of the late 19th century, you know, South Asian Mountain Ouch dancers who came to the US and the kind of mythic figure that came alongside their image. So luckily, the Asian dancing boy was not an impossible ideal, and not disrupted in a rupture between fantasy and reality, as with white American audience members when they saw the Oriental dancing girl in their minds not match up to what they saw in the flesh. You know, it's, you know, they have this racialized image and they were disappointed. For me, the Asian dancing boy was kind of a figure of familiarity. And when I saw, you know, Filipino American dancing boys in my neighborhood, Sacramento apparently is rife with them. We have like the Jabberwockies, we have Ren Crystal Logo from Black Flag. Um, there's like a robust kind of dance community, especially with hip hop. So when I saw these like, groups of boys who were amazing dancers, I was not disappointed. So it ended up being kind of an aspirational ideal when I saw on the screen on the variety shows and what I saw, in the streets, on like school, on school grounds where they would be breakdancing. That's where you know, I had this kind of image that coincided with them. So, depending on, you know, the algorithm you're served, um, this aspirational ideal, was shaped for me by a plurality of Asian male dancers. I looked at Thai, like 90s Thai, Korean, and Filipino music videos and variety show. So to kind of see how they danced. And I thought, okay, that's the closest we have to people who look like me who dance on screen. This was the 90s again, so it's a very specific point in time. So nowadays, with like the rise of K-pop, this is quickly overshadowing the image of the Asian dancing boy on a global scale. So, now depending on your algorithm, you could see masculine Asian dancers, athletically, you know, executing these moves, and you think, oh, K-pop. But some of us, especially if you grew up, maybe if you're at least alive and aware and watching TV in the late aughts, maybe the 2010s, you'll see, you may have watched America's Best Dance Crew, you may have watched World Dance, you may have seen other kind of diasporic, uh, like Asian dance groups also being like amazing dancers. And Jabberwockies maybe when you see them unmasked. So, you think of Kinjas, Jabberwockies, Poriotics, Quest Crew, Kaba Modern. You think of those figures. And I look at like K-pop, as something that appealed to me as someone who was gender nonconforming, exploring my identity. And I was really intrigued by the figure of Kiki Bum. So the shovels or like the shiny fans out there, you know who this is. This is, his look from the music video for Lucifer, which is just a very iconic choreography that recently became viral again in the past month. It's known for being very technically challenging, and the choreography is done by a Japanese migrant to the US who works very intimately with Filipino American dance crews, and her name is Rino Nakasone. So I was very, very intrigued by Shiny for their kind of androgynous, somewhat feminine dance moves. There was a little Michael Jackson, but there was also sensibilities that to me read as more feminine or soft masculine. And because of that, I got intrigued. I started watching, interviews, and I found really interesting because he would be able to execute feminine like K-pop choreography very, very precisely and embodied kind of a femininity that to me read very queerly. So a lot of fans also, and I think to this day, maybe the shovels in the audience can let me know what you think. To a lot of us, he reads queerly. And he may not be queer, but to us, he is kind of a queer icon. So that's what drove me to audition for Boston University Mix's the K-pop cover dance group, their cover of Lucifer, and actually the person who organized this is in the is in the Zoom room right now. So you'll see her in this photo, and I'm in the center. You'll see that I basically we tried to dress as closely as we could to the music video, which is kind of the repertoire for a lot of K-pop cover dancers. You try to embody a look that you might see in the music video or stage performance. So I went like as far as to like shave my head to replicate his mohawk at the time. So let's see, I'll do a little bit of this. So that's just like a little bit. So for me and AFAB, exploring non-binary gender identity felt a strong desire to embody what I interpreted as a fierce and like kind of androgynously queer quality in Key. Though my own physical body was far, far cry from the slender, like pale skinned, willowy form of the idol. I mean, you can see, I mean, as you saw in the previous slide. Didn't want to subject that to you again. Subject you all to that again. So my own limit in skill and physical condition made final dance performances and filming very daunting. I was easily twice the age of the people in that group since they were undergrads. And I was, I think, in my 30s. So what I did feel like I had control over was my aesthetic presentation, styling my hair, makeup, clothing, binding my chest, I felt the deep shame of being, quote unquote, a cheap Southeast Asian knockoff of tea, or what, Americans would say, like the dollar store version of tea. Even in the playful scene of like cover dance. Um, so my racialized masquerade as the Korean key felt lacking a totality of like bony elements from gender to ethnicity to body type to ability. So um, I still, though, took pleasure in the movements that felt androgynous. So kinesthetic kind of attachment to how he moved, and how these beautiful men dancing kind of femish choreography by a Japanese dancer. Like it just something about it felt right to me. So um, this is something that I kind of talk about a little bit more, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna move a little bit further down. Um, so I mentioned in my work, like Humibaba's like not quite, not right, um, dichotomy and how it gets replicated in the East and Southeast Asian sphere, which imbues, the mimicry of the ethnic other with like kind of an insidious racial dynamic. Um, I have like examples from like other Southeast Asian countries where even cis men are just like raised to the ground by netizens for just being too dark um, to be like embodying a K-pop idol. So this is a dance practice that I found also familiar because I grew up like kind of mimicking these athletic virtuoso dancers that were also, like Asian groups on stage. So, it's not the first time I've done it. And it's a familiar practice for a lot of like Filipinx in the diaspora and Filipinos in the Philippines. So Filipinos have long been kind of a core labor force, hired globally as entertainers. I'm gonna skip over some of this history. It's great history though. But it talks about, the OPA or the overseas performing artist and how they basically shape a lot of like movement sensibility in the Philippines and the diaspora. We have like, this is a comedic duo named Moy Moy Palaboy. And this is kind of like a quick idea of the 90s dance crazes that you would see growing up. They just kind of do a quick on Dub Smash, if you remember Dub Smash, how they would just kind of go quickly through some of these iconic dances. So like I'm just gonna stop at the mbop because that's something that you wouldn't expect some like these dancers to create a dance for, right? It's like Kansas mbop and making those doing those like movements with that song, I think is kind of a lost art. I wish they would bring that back, bring back dancing to white boy pop Um, so there are Filipino scholars like Mark R. Villegas and like Tony Tongson, one of his students is here today, who talk about like the flows of, you know, like global flows of US militarization and how it shapes and contours like Filipinx American hip hop performance cultures. And Villegas calls this kind of a symbiotic epistemological flow. And I talk here just kind of to save some time. I am going to talk a little bit about how this kind of informs a lot of, diaspora and like back in the Philippines, like their sort of performance of hip hop and what Kim Suk Young kind of refers to as ethnic, like kind of racial surplus, where they kind of hold and embody like various different disparate identities. So I'm going to play a little bit of a choreography by Street Boys to the song Pata Pata.
The Latin flavor. Come on, mommy. Come on, mommy. Come on, mommy. Come on, mommy.
So this is like this is the same
You got an invitation to my party, especially on the girl named Lord, hot and sexy. Make some of them spin and some of them green with my style. Yeah. This is the Canadian for the ladies. Love me like a chulo, mommy, love me like a chulo, mommy, love me.
So this is something that I now as an adult, when I look back on it, I can't tell you how many times I hurt myself trying to do this choreography and trying to find a friend who would do that pair part with me. There are so many like, instances of like uh, kind of like cultural contact. You see like things drawn from, they mentioned cholo, like you see the way they style themselves is kind of reminiscent of like, California, American, wait, hold on. Mexican Americans, like the cholo subculture there and how they style themselves. And there are so many like different like racialized aspects that you can pick out, like going from like love me like a cholo and then doing like this, like the kind of like gesture that I think is more, aligned with Japanese femininity. And then you see like pata pata is like it is actually a South African song that does not have any of the same context. So it's a pair dance where you pata pata means to like lightly pat your partner's body. So it's just really interesting, like all the intersections that you see here. And with mbop, you see Western line dance, you see like all sorts of like really interesting, disparate like cultural influences. And with the pair dance with pata pata, I see things that kind of give me maybe Bollywood, maybe even like Filipino palangay. There's just a lot going on, and that is, racial surplus when you're kind of embodying different things. And like Universal Studios, Singapore, you see Filipino kind of celebrity Filipino dancers who come there hired to kind of embody like hip hop American street dance, where they do like a lot of hip hop performances. They do kind of break dance, and they're supposed to embody, Black and Latina cultures, but they are just dark-skinned Filipinos. So they're supposed to kind of have this racial accent, like excess, and embody, what people would like kind of deem as, Americanness. And this is something that also, let's see, I think this one I think it might be.
My heart goes sha la 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 la, sha la la in the morning.
Have you been to like a Filipino party? Like maybe you've seen that line dance. I'm going to kind of zoom through some of this. This is what, the ride like.
My heart goes sha la 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 la, sha la la in the morning.
So a lot of
Sha la 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 la, sha la la in the sunshine.
like headband you can do.
Sha la la la.
It made me very, very dizzy. But this is I kind of go more into detail about how Shalala is kind of it gives you kind of a light, kind of almost like softly androgynous dance. It's like you see the dance and you think, oh, that's not something that's hard lined, kind of hegemonic masculinity and movements that would be associated with that. Um, and then I, kind of draw parallels with, K-pop. And this is actually a K-pop slideshow I found on Slidesgo, which is very like pastel, very similar kind of aesthetic. And funny enough, similar hair, just, differently colored. Like it all comes back again. So I talk about these movement sensibilities and how there's so much plurality and with what they're drawing from, and how that sort of is very similar with K-pop. And I think that's why K-pop cover dance in the Philippines is something they took to like fish to water. I mean, they are seafaring people, but it's just like water. It felt right. So here, I'm going to bring it kind of back to one of my favorite platforms that I hope will live forever. But I'm always sweating and archiving because of the administration. So this is a TikTok challenge that has dance creators who are Filipino from the Philippines, and they went super viral. I just pulled these two from just last year. So this is Like I Do, which is by a Filipino-Australian singer named, let's see, I think it's like Jay Tahor.
You deserve all things you want, baby. Top cool. Said you wanna drive it down real soon. I just wanna love you like I do, cause I never had someone like you.
And this is
You deserve all things you want, baby. Top cool. Said you wanna drive it down real soon. I just wanna love you like I do, cause I never had someone like you. Ain't nobody got this love, got me cuffed. Ain't no
see like these, huge K-pop idols dancing this choreography, often uncredited, often like without, Rizal de Soto name. And this is like unfortunately like a kind of uh choreographic theft. Like I want to say that happens often on TikTok. I mean, you see it with Charlie D'Amelio dancing Jalaya Harvin's Renegade dance, and how the black femme creator of the dance did not get her flowers or the check until much later. I think when Ellen gave it to her, it was a really odd moment to see that. But this is something that's happening, I argue, like in a different sphere. So let's see here. This is another one. This is by Niana Guerrero, who's a big TikTok dance creator. And this is Goodies by Ciara, if you all know like that song. It's nostalgic, but there were quite a few K-pop performers, but I chose like just a couple. This is Treasure from the oh my goodness, the fact that it says n hyphen sim on, okay, the internet's forever, but that's okay. um, so folks in the Zoom who are familiar with with dance, like I wonder if you can tell who the original was, like just from the way that they move, right? So there is like I'm gonna dip a little bit into Japan now with like the erasure that happens on, on the animation sphere that, kind of I feel like kind of hinted that I do MMD animation. And this is a piece that I had made. I had not published yet, but I had animated the Jujutsu Kaisen trio, and he knows I love that anime. So this is kind of like a meme that's been going on since 2011.
Everybody, yeah. Rock your body, yeah. Everybody, yeah. Rock your body right. Back streets back, alright. Hey, now, oh my God, we're back again.
What happened there was like Japanese netizens on Nico Nico Doga, which is basically the Japanese version of YouTube from back then. They had basically like been very enraptured by like the Filipino comedic duo, who I showed earlier. They have like very dance-really sensibilities. They were really enraptured, and they decided to hand trace via like a software called Miku Miku Dance, which is a freeware that you use to kind of animate 3D models of Vocaloids, which is a whole different chapter. So if you're interested, that's in my dissertation. So what happens is they often don't get credited. Like Filipino, you know, choreography creators, the people who they're tracing get erased and they get replaced with digital bodies. And often, even though, the kind of creative, what do you call it? The authorship also gets erased, even with like a more robust like Japanese citational practice. It still happens, and I noted this in like Filipino American choreographer Keone Madrid's choreography of BTS that also gets animated, and then his own like original choreography to We Could Fly by Sam Sparrow, I think. He that gets erased as well. If you all know Attack on Titan, people will see that and go, "Oh, Levi from Attack on Titan, dancing this great dance," but they're like Keone Madrid is often not in many cases and instances is not credited as a choreographer or the source of the motion trace. Some people do remember to cite, but it happens more often than not, especially once the motion data moves away from the Japanese sphere, where it's a little bit more tight with the citational practice. Some of you here have helped me find passwords to like the Japanese like motion trace data. Thank you. um, so they kind of like gatekeep it because they know this plagiarism happens and the lack of citation happens. Um, and okay, I think we are getting closer to the end, so I am going to move into like yeah, what it means when this labor from like Filipinx, Filipino bodies is erased. When K-pop choreographers like Keone Madrid, Brian Puspos, um, there's quite a few actually who choreograph K-pop dances. And it's their movement sensibilities which are informed by, Black American and Africanist dance forms, like what happens when that all becomes attributed to K-pop and the K-pop industry and what people, associate with now like the virtuoso Asian dancing boy, right? So this is changing, I think, now. As of 3 days ago, I noticed, uh, I was being sent videos of a dancer from I believe he's from my hometown as well. It's like the Sacramento area, same suburb. I found out that he had a dance studio there with his family. So Crisologo, who I mentioned earlier, um, I had gotten like very enthusiastic DMs saying, "Oh, you should look at this." And you like I think this was like maybe 3 days ago, J-Hope from BTS had released a track called Mona Lisa. And in, kind of previews to the choreography, he has Ren Crisologo and Rie Hata, who are both of, Filipino descent. One, like Rie, I think is Filipino Japanese, and Ren is Filipino American.
I like my girls being so fun. 1+9. Height get me going, might just blow it. I like my girls pretty in the face. Art is the frame. Mona Lisa, yeah, I need you. I like my girls looking just like a painting. Don't need no validation. Pretty so fun.
And I went to Ren Crisologo's Twitter, and he was retweeting these really cute memes with the Filipino flag on them. Um, and it was just like pride in like his identity and the identity of his co-choreographer, which I think is interesting because, like Filipinos, the Philippines are often seen as the mimickers, the imitators, not the creators or the creatives who make this work and make it successful. So it's really interesting that they're getting their flowers now as of what a few days ago. I feel like maybe there might have been some sort of like hat tip or citational practice before. I know Keanu Madrid on BTS videos is listed in the description as a choreographer, but it's really interesting to see them being featured ahead of time before the single gets released. So, I was wondering, okay, why is it that the K-pop industry is looking so often to Filipino Americans for, kind of hip hop sensibilities? And I remembered like Eduardo Vanilla Silva's like racism without racist. And I remember this chart where for some, like a lot of Southeast Asians somehow we're in the collective black like category when you look at the triracial order he calls in the USA, and honorary whites, Korean Americans, and East Asians. So I think that's really, really interesting to see that. Um, and I wonder if it's just because we have close enough proximity and like enough history working with, U.S. military, where Korea is essentially full of U.S. military bases, but the Philippines has a history of, being a Commonwealth, and also being absorbed into their military. So my father served in the U.S. Navy during Vietnam, and he it was kind of shocking at first how much AAVE he remembered from the 70s, and I was just like, interesting, Dad. And it's really, it kind of showed that when you're crew on a ship alongside like black servicemen, there's a lot of exchange that happens. That I wonder if it has something to do with it. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and um, end it here. So thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, I'm happy to to chat about, what I was able to kind of get out today. Sorry, it was a bit rushed, so I could make time. But thank you very much. I'll try to I think what I can try to do is I'll look at the chat and see if there's oh I did nearly cry during Akil's intro as well. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Oh, this is from Drake.
Yeah. So Drake, your handwriting is perfect. So what makes the Filipino body so fungible and ambiguous to so many? Thank you so much. For example, while Universal Studios Singapore hires Filipino dancers seemingly as stand-ins and reflections of Black and Latino dancers in the US, Japanese animators recast videos of Filipino comedians in digital form. Ooh, yeah, I feel like there is a lot of fungibility in, I guess, movement, how like Filipino bodies maybe move. I don't want to essentialize things, but I wonder if there might be a little bit of like a little kernel of I guess truth with the ability to mimic, which I also kind of attribute to needing to assimilate and being colonized for so much of like their history. There is a lot that you have to do to survive to assimilate. And it was a way to kind of move upwards, with vocal covers, but I feel like the Filipino body, the dancing Filipino body, the splendid dancer, um, J. Lorenzo Perillo kind of cautions against like the kind of essentializing or thinking of it as innate, kind of like, oh, they're just naturally good dancers. It's in your genes, there's that joke. But at the same time, you think about, what are the cultural currents that kind of inform like kind of the rich tapestry that they draw upon and like how much silliness they're willing to take on, right? Dancing to Mbop by Hanson and other TikTok challenges that I was actually very surprised. I think they did oh shoot, what was the Lizzie McGuire theme song? There was like a group of really tough looking Filipino men and they were just seated dancing to the Lizzie McGuire theme song, which was really adorable. Actually, I think that's on my TikTok as well if you want to like check that out. So thank you, Drake. Um, thank you so much. Oh, you. So Filipinos in Hollywood historically played the quote every Asian. Very true. If you watch The Good Place, Manny Jacinto's Jason Mendoza makes a nice little joke about that. And he's like, "Oh, Kevin's racist. They think I'm Taiwanese. I'm Filipino." So variety show dancers seem to incorporate various dance styles. Is there a parallel here, maybe through mimicry? Yeah, I think there definitely is something to this because, Lucy May San Pablo Burns and Daphne Lay also talk about Daphne Lay talks about yellow drag, which is kind of like a cross-ethnic passing performance that a lot of Filipinos have to do. Like I guess I should shout out my brother. He's not there, but I will shout him out. He was on the Miss Saigon uh, US tour, and he was ensemble cast. And this is something Lucy May San Pablo Burns talks about in Puro Arte, her book, where she talks about Miss Saigon being, even though it's a Vietnamese story, it's Filipino bodies who are playing Vietnamese. So it's like cross-ethnic passing. And in Hollywood, yeah, Crazy Rich Asians for sure. I know that there was like a Filipino in there playing someone who was not Filipino, I think was ethnically Chinese. So yeah, I feel like there is kind of a mimicry happening, and I did skip over this in my presentation, so I'm glad to bring this up. There is kind of a racialized masquerade that they're paid to do. They are trained to do to get that visa to be an entertainer abroad. So even to be a hostess in a club, you have to kind of take dance classes, pass like a jazz dance like element of the visa certification. And yeah, there is a lot of kind of having to embody the other and disappear yourself that happens like along so many performance cultures for Filipinos. So that is absolutely something I think is tied to it. You're onto something. Okay, you mentioned Kinjas and Jabberwockies, whose costuming plays a big role in their performances. How do aesthetics and costuming play a role in Racialized Masquerade and also in Erasure. Oh man, this is so good. This is actually something that I do write about it's extensively in my dissertation project. And like I talk a lot about so Kinjas, are predominantly, I want to say they're not Japanese, but they embody kind of a Japanese-ness, right? Something that's like kind of associated with anime, Naruto, like kind of like a mythic, imagined sort of Japanese-ness. So that's definitely something that I term or I would call racialized masquerade. And Jabberwockies, yeah, they absolutely. Mina Yang talks about in her article like yellow faces, I think white masks. um, she talks about how Jabberwockies kind of obscures their racialized identities. So the Filipino and the Asian American members alongside the Black members all obscure their race. But in doing that, they also obscure kind of the racialized aspects of the dance. I mean, it still shows up, in their movement, like the Africanist movements, the hip hop influence still shows up through like kind of movement, like the metonym of movement. So that is what kind of like makes visible the racialization of uh, their dance performance, and that's kind of a key, I think, for how like I guess the movement aspect, where Kinjas uses like kind of Orientalist imagery, but with hip hop movement kind of sensibility. Like with Jabberwockies, they try to obscure everything and just like speak through their bodies. So thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. So where do you see trends in the future? Do you think so the Southeast Asian dancers, Asia, could dominate K-pop like Lisa and Blackpink? Oh yeah. Um, and redefine the culture. I mean, if what I saw from 3 days ago is any indication, I hope so. I hope like they actually become more visible in the industry and are given their flowers. They earned it. Thank you. And I like the pen, it's cute, it's purple. I know the P-pop boy group, SB19. Oh, I do like them. I was tempted to put in a slide. Started as part of a K-pop cover cruise. Good to know. I did not know that, but I'm not surprised. And last year I saw them perform with and team on stage. Hey, congrats. Um, there are also a lot more Filipino K-pop idols now, but do you think Filipinos will ever be able to break through the pale glass skin beauty standard of the Koreans have set? I mean, this is very cynical, but there are those IV drips that that pale your skin up. And if you see, oh, it's Stella, I think from SB19, you see, people would call it a glow up. It's extensive plastic surgery and skin whitening is what happened. I'm tempted to go online and show you right now the night and day between where he debuted or pre-debut and where he is now. He has the voice of an angel, but it is really startling to see the huge difference between his very dark-skinned self with his broader nose, and now the more kind of pointed nose, super pale skin, the features that have just been chiseled onto him. It is a little sad to see that. So they can break through surgically, medically, but I think what you mean is, will they be able to kind of normalize darker skin, kind of more Southeast Asian features? I really hope so. I mean, I know Alamat does, which is a Filipino, like a P-pop group that kind of embraces kind of indigeneity, and they do actually also have like a Black Filipino member in the group who wears natural hairstyles and wears, his natural skin color from what I've seen. So I think it's happening. Hopefully there'll be more, and that would save them a lot of money with like maintenance with those injections because I hear they are not cheap. So okay, I do have one. Is it okay to take one?
Yes, please.
Awesome, thank you. So this is from Nick. Okay. Thank you. Okay, it's not a question, it's more like a comment. Thank you, Nick. I think that's probably all. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, where? Sorry, I didn't mean to overlook. Um, oh, how do you choose which songs to dance to? Oh man, that's a good one. I actually tend to get to gravitate towards things that are a little androgynous, like the Lizzie McGuire dance that like the Filipinos did. It's very, very cute. Yeah, I think what draws me are like certain moves and whether I can actually execute them. You know, there's a skill ceiling here. So that's like a big, a big barrier and draw. But with Lucifer, it was also very, very, um, it was something I was determined to learn despite how challenging it was. And I'm glad that it's viral again, so I can pull it out of my back pocket and see what muscle memory kicks in. So, um, yeah, Vivian, and like if you want to do it again, I'm around. Okay, so I see Rafael Espiritu. What are your thoughts on the co-opting of the viral paging doctor beat? Oh my goodness, I want to share this so bad. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Rafael. So the paging doctor beat meme, um, it's budots. It's kind of it is a dance form that is very Filipino and very like rooted in like electronic meme culture, and it was really interesting to see how people like interpreted the dance. I would do it here, but I do have a TikTok that I can just share later of me doing it in clothing that's maybe a little easier to move in. So breaking it into essentially an outfit of the day series. This is something that I found very interesting because budot is like something that uses your entire body. I could demonstrate it afterwards, but like what they did with like a lot of non-Filipino creators, what they would do is they would just like I don't know if this is visible, but they would just kind of walk like a robot and just change their outfit to the beat instead of the whole like moving and like going to the ground, which is what budot is. So I was a big fan of like the Filipino creators who would do the outfits, but also do the dance in these fantastic outfits, just going low to the ground. It was so much more interesting, I think, and it was a bit like a more meaningful performance. Um, so thank you. I think that's about it, and I'll stick around afterwards for more questions.
Thank
For anybody.
you.